Hey everyone, this is Eric Franklin with your Garrison Public Affairs Office. Voting is essential for all service members and their families, and the Installation Voting Assistance Officer is here to help you learn more about it. All that and more on this week's Great Big Podcast. And we're back. Thanks, Captain West, for coming in and visiting with us. Could you tell me a little bit about what your role is here in the 3rd Armored Corps?
Yeah, so I'm the Installation Voting Assistance Officer. So my job is to get the word out about the Federal Voting Assistance Program to all the soldiers, eligible family members that either live on Fort Cavazos or in the surrounding communities, and just kind of help educate them about the existence of the program, and also to manage all of the unit voting assistance officers that are assigned to all the units on post. And they're there to help direct those soldiers and family members to the resources to vote by absentee ballot.
Okay. And just for you, why is this an important mission?
It's so core to what we are as Americans. Our democracy and our election process, it's central to our culture. And I think especially for us as service members, it kind of has a very direct impact on us and on our family members.
Yeah.
So we all have a very vested interest in voicing our opinions and having a say in who our national leaders are.
With military service members being literally across the world, what are some of the challenges that someone in the military might face when they're trying to vote?
Depending on how austere the environment is, they may not have access to internet, or sometimes in the early stages of operations, the postal system may not be firmly established. So most of the resources that soldiers can use to vote via absentee ballot, it's online through the FVAP.gov website.
Okay.
It's very easy to use, very intuitive. But if soldiers find themselves in a location where there is no internet access, then that's when they can lean on the support and the assistance from their unit voting assistance officers. And then they're there to help those soldiers get a hold of, physical copies of federal postcard applications, or FPCAs, that they can then mail in through the Postal Service to get a ballot.
Snail mail, yeah. So I'm going to date myself here a little bit, but back when I first came in the Army, back before the internet seemed to be a thing, I'm not that old, but it was, I came in '99, and my first duty station was in Korea. And when first time I voted, it was difficult because I was in Korea, and it was my first time ever voting as well. So there was no internet. I couldn't just go online. And I remember the voter registration guy came by and it's like, hey, make sure you vote. It matters. And I think the next time I voted, I was downrange. So it's always good to have, for me as a former service member, it was always good to have to know that this is literally someone's job to make sure that we understand, hey, these are your options. Because if you would have told me, if I wouldn't have had that person there in my unit, I wouldn't have known I couldn't vote it. And I think that still is a thing that a lot of people don't think, I'm not in the country, I can't vote. But that's not necessarily true. Mm-hmm. So for helping people get set up and register to vote, could you just walk me through that process when you go help someone to register to vote?
Yep. So the first thing I do is I'll direct them to the FVAP.gov website. Like I said, it's a very easy process. As soon as you go to the website, the landing page has a big red banner. It says, click here to register to vote.
Okay.
And then what you do is it'll take you through the process of, requesting information from you about where you live. It'll ask for information to identify your citizenship status. And what you do is, in the process of filling that out, you're registering to vote, and then you're also requesting that a mail-in ballot be mailed to you.
Okay.
So once you submit that online, then the ballot is supposed to arrive in the mail. You get the ballot in the mail, and then you fill out, who you're voting for, what your selections are.
Yeah.
And then it has like a prepaid postage envelope that you can mail it back in. And
so, you've been in the military a couple of days. Have you had to experience that process for yourself?
Yeah, my wife and I did it once early on when we were in the Army. We did it the first time, and that was over a decade ago. So that's how long even the online function has been available.
Okay.
But since then, we've become residents, and we just vote locally.
Okay. And so, I love it when people come to Texas and it's like, I want to be a Texas resident. Mm-hmm. I'm partial to Texas, so that's my thing. With the 2024 election year coming up here, getting ready to get in a full swing, what are some of the not necessarily the issues, but the friction points that you may come across when making sure everyone is registered to vote and understand everything about voting?
I've had a couple of unique circumstances come up this year, and the process, the program, it works well. Mm-hmm. It works great, and we're kind of at a point in time right now where there's very few places we're sending soldiers overseas that are not already built up. So most of them do have access to the internet.
Yeah.
So most of the friction points, most of the concerns I've had this year specifically haven't had to deal with people trying to figure out, how do I fill out an FPCA and get my ballot? It's been more questions about people who are moving or deploying right in the middle of the election season coming up.
Okay.
And so they're kind of worried about the timeline. I'm going to be in a state of flux where I won't have an address where I can receive a ballot. Yeah. What do I do then? And I've just been advising them, if we have units that are going to NTC soon, I've been advising their voting assistance officers, make sure everybody submits their FPCAs now.
Yeah.
And then if they don't receive their ballot in the mail by a certain date, like a couple weeks before they walk out the door and deploy, there's a second option that they can use, and that's called a federal write-in absentee ballot.
Okay.
Or a FWAB. And that's kind of like your emergency backup ballot. If you send in your FPCA and you don't get a ballot in the mail, then you just fill out the FWAB. Again, you can do it online, or you can get hard copies from unit voting assistance officers.
Okay.
And that just basically serves as a ballot in and of itself. So you just get that FWAB, fill it out, and mail that in if you run out of time, essentially.
Okay. And so, another big part of your job is making sure, you mentioned making sure that those voter assistants, they're not officers, they're just, what are they called?
Well, yeah. So the title is a unit voting assistance officer.
Okay.
But they're senior NCOs and officers. Yep.
Okay. And you mentioned that part of your job is just making sure that they're informed. How do you do that? Do you have like a class every couple of weeks, or do you just send out an email and like, hey, if you have any questions, let me know? Or how does that work?
I try to send out regular monthly emails.
Okay.
To all the voting assistance officers on post. I get regular updates from the Army Voting Assistance Program. So I essentially just try to pass that on and share like all of the updates or the news or deadlines that they need to be aware of. I ask them if there's been any changes in their unit. If somebody writes back and says, hey, I'm not in that unit anymore, then I'll ask them, who's the new voting assistance officer?
Yeah.
Give me their contact information. So I've been doing that. Earlier in the summer, I also coordinated a workshop where I had a representative from the Army Voting Assistance Program come to Fort Cavazos, and she put on a training to train all of the unit voting assistance officers. We had a pretty good turnout, and that it serves as their training, their official training to be voting assistance officers, but it's also a good opportunity to network with everybody else on the installation who's doing the same job.
Okay. So, talk to me a little bit about the efforts within, not only just the 3rd Armored Corps, because we're all over the place, but here on the installation to just make sure everyone has that opportunity to not only get their voices heard, but to vote. Tell me a little bit about why that's important.
kind of like what we were talking about earlier. It's important because for us as soldiers and also our family members, the results from the election can have a very direct impact on our lives.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that this election year is, special or more critical than any in the past. It seems like my personal experience, it seems like every election cycle, it's this one's more important than all the ones that came before, and this one's more important than all the ones that came before. But we're kind of standing on the knife's edge with things happening around the world right now, and either way that the United States goes, that our government goes, it's going to have a very direct impact on us and on our families. So it's very important for us to make sure that we're voting and having our say.
Okay. And then, just, final thoughts. We're getting ready to get out of here. Just final thoughts on what life has been like for you. You've only been in this position a year, or how long have you been in this position?
It's been about a year.
A year? Mm-hmm. So just, share with me your final thoughts about what the biggest takeaway about this is, and if someone had any questions because they couldn't find their unit's voting assistance, how they could either reach you or how they could just learn more about the program.
Okay. I think the greatest takeaway I've had from this, another thing I do to spread the word and to make sure that I'm increasing knowledge of the program is, every week I go to the newcomers brief.
Okay.
For all the new soldiers coming onto Fort Cavazos, and I brief them and tell them, hey, this program exists. Here's my contact information, and I tell them if you don't have a unit voting assistance officer, then contact me and we'll get that straightened out. Because ultimately, my job as the installation voting assistance officer is to make sure the program is running in all the different units. But when you sit in that room with all those soldiers arriving on Fort Cavazos, and they ask, how many of you, this is your first duty station, how many of you are brand new in the Army?
Yeah.
And like almost always, a majority of them raise their hand.
Yeah.
How many of you are straight out of high school? They're all really young. And I know for me at that age, I didn't understand the process. If I had joined the Army straight out of high school, I would have had absolutely no clue that there's even a way for me to vote away from home.
Yeah.
Let alone how that process would look. So, yeah, I think over the last year, I've seen how just spreading the knowledge of the program, just making people aware that it even exists, is a huge impact.
Okay. That's it. When is the deadline? Before we get out of here, is there a deadline to when I have to be registered to vote so I can make sure that my vote counts?
So it does tend to vary by state to state.
Okay.
So I would tell soldiers they can go onto the ff.gov website. There's an interactive map on there, and you can click on your state. It'll give you all the deadlines. Or you can ask a unit voting assistance officer to help you figure that out. So there's no hard deadline for the program as a whole.
Okay.
What they recommend is 90 days out, which, we're already within that window.
Yeah.
So as soon as possible, send in that FPCA to get your ballot. If you do not receive your ballot by mid-October, I would say the second week at that point, then go ahead and fill out the FWAB and send that in.
Okay. All right. Well, guys, we like to thank you guys for taking the time out to come and listen to us. We'll have all that information and a lot more down in the show notes. And again, we like to thank you guys for joining us. Talk to you later.
Okay, so maybe your commute doesn't look quite like this, but don't let the road throw you an unexpected curve. Many riders would tell you that riding in heavy traffic or on the freeway is the most dangerous thing people do routinely on a motorcycle. Not true. 73% of single rider mishaps happened on curves. Stay focused, stay aware, stay alive. Readiness through safety.
Hello, everyone. I'm Janice Wright with your Garrison Public Affairs Office. Welcome to your Fort Cavazos Minute. We've got everything you need to know to stay connected and informed. First up, new hours for the Army Community Service began last Friday. Be sure to check the updated times for the Shoemaker Center and the Soldier and Family Assistance Center. Next, mark your calendars for the Fort Cavazos Spouses Club Super Sign Up on August 29th at Samuel Adams Brewhouse from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's a great chance to meet other spouses and get involved. And finally, first-time Click2Go users save $15 on your first $75 order. This offer is available at Fort Cavazos Commissary through October 27th, so take advantage while you can. That's all for your Fort Cavazos Minute. Stay tuned for more updates to keep you on track. More information can be found in the links below.
Whoa! Hey, what's going on, Eric?
What's going on, Sean?
Yeah. What was your take on the federal voting assistance program?
Coming up this November, we all need to remember to get out there and make sure that we make our voice heard. So if you need any assistance, go to fvap.gov. That's fvap.gov, and get your vote out there.
And there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to make your voice heard, whether you're in service, whether you're a civilian, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And for a lot of these folks who have sworn to defend the Constitution, it is absolutely paramount that you flex that right and go vote.
Yeah. All right. So, what are you going to be doing this weekend?
This weekend, it's actually my anniversary. So
Oh.
I'm going to be spending some time with my wife.
Okay.
But outside
Have
of
fun.
that, I do what I always do, and I hang out at the gym and spend a lot of time teaching kids jiu-jitsu. So what about you?
Cool. Oh, I just finished up a week in South Dakota, so that was fun. Yeah, I'm just taking it easy, Labor Day and all that stuff. So, it's actually one of my first Labor Days where I can just chill out. So that's a very, very good blessing.
That's awesome. You better enjoy it. And I don't know how the barbecue is up in South Dakota, but
No, it's not a thing, but as much as they'd like to tell you, but
it ain't Texas.
it sure ain't Texas. It ain't Kansas. What's the other one?
There is no other one. It's just Texas.
I thought there's. Oh, okay.
Heresy.
Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Great Big Podcast. We'll be excited to see you again next Monday. Make sure you tune in, subscribe, like, and comment.
Take care, y'all.